Right now, a massive nationwide audit of India's voter lists is kicking up a huge political firestorm. Officials are calling it a much-needed cleanup, something that's long overdue. But critics, they're calling it something way more sinister. So today, we're going to break down exactly what's going on and what's really at stake.
For the first time in 2 whole decades, India is doing a ground-up, door-to-door check of every single voter. I mean, the last time anything on this scale happened was way back between 2002 and 2004. It's been a while.
And the scale we're talking about here is just staggering. In just the next phase of this project, the voting rights of over 51 crore people are being put under a microscope. That's 510 million people.
To put that number into perspective for you, that is more than the entire population of the United States and Russia combined. And every single one of those voters has to have their eligibility re-verified. So this all boils down to one massive question, right? Is this just a simple, necessary chore to make sure elections are clean and fair? Or is this whole process being turned into a political weapon to strip millions of their right to vote?
Okay, so let's start with the official line. The Election Commission of India, you'll hear them called the ECI, says this huge project is absolutely essential for the health of the country's democracy.
It's called the Special Intensive Revision, or SIR for short. And the ECI's reasoning is pretty straightforward. They say that after 20 years of people moving to cities and migrating, the voter lists are just full of mistakes. So the goal is to remove people who are on the list twice, voters who have passed away, and people who've moved. But, and this is a really big but, they also added a 4th category to be removed, so-called illegal immigrants.
Now, on paper, this all sounds pretty simple, right? But the process itself is where all the controversy is hiding. As they say, the devil is in the details. And oh boy, are there details.
So if you've been on the voter list since way back in 2003, it's actually pretty easy. An election official, a booth-level officer, comes to your house, you sign a form confirming your details are correct, and that's it. You don't need to show any extra documents. Simple. But, and here's the kicker, for the millions and millions of Indians who registered to vote after 2003, the rules are totally different. This is the catch. If you were born after 2004, you don't just have to prove your own date and place of birth, you also have to dig up documents that prove the date and place of birth for your parents. So what was supposed to be a simple voter update has suddenly turned into this incredibly complex citizenship check.
So where did all this start? Well, the first test case for this new process was in the state of Bihar, and it immediately exploded into a political and social firestorm, pretty much setting the stage for the rest of the country.
After they ran this new process, one number sent absolute shockwaves through the state. 65 lakh. That's 6.5 million.
That's how many people just poof. Their names were gone from the draft voter list. In just one state, millions of people were suddenly facing the very real possibility of losing their right to vote.
And here's what's really telling. These deletions weren't spread out evenly across the state. Not at all. In some districts, the numbers were just wild. In Gopalganj, nearly 14% of all voters were removed. In Kishanganj, it was over 10%. Seeing these deletions concentrated in specific areas, well, that's when the alarm bells really started ringing for a lot of people.
You can bet the political reaction was swift, and it was furious. Opposition leaders from all over the country just laid into the process. The Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, M.K. Stalin, didn't mince words. He called it a vote theft scheme designed to help the ruling party.
So the argument from critics, and what people were reporting from the ground, was that this wasn't just some administrative mistake. The claim was that there was a disproportionate focus on areas with large Muslim populations and on marginalized communities, sparking these very serious fears that this whole exercise was designed to selectively cut voters out along communal lines.
With all this controversy swirling, it was probably inevitable that this would end up at the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court of India. Activists took the case there, arguing that the whole process was unfair and violated the fundamental right to vote.
And the Supreme Court's role here was fascinating. They didn't actually stop the whole thing. Instead, they kind of acted like a referee, stepping in to force some transparency. Their main worry seemed to be preventing a situation where millions of people could lose their vote without any proper procedure.
So, the court laid down some really key rules. First, it ordered the ECI to publish that entire list of 6.5 million deleted names online and in local offices, so people could actually find out if they'd been removed and why. And this next part is crucial. It also ordered the ECI to accept common everyday documents like Aadhaar, voter IDs, and ration cards to get back on the list. This made it a whole lot easier for people to reclaim their vote.
So you might think, okay, that was Bihar. But no, the firestorm in Bihar was really just the beginning. The controversies and the lessons from that experience are now shaping how this massive audit is rolling out across the entire nation.
Right now, Phase 2 is underway in 12 more states and territories. That puts the voting rights of those 510 million people we talked about under the very same microscope that caused all that chaos in Bihar. And get this, the final lists are scheduled to be published in February 2026, which is just before several very important state elections.
And that brings us right back to where we started. Is this a difficult but necessary democratic cleanup to make sure our elections are fair, or does it risk becoming a tool for disenfranchising people on a scale we've never seen before? As this whole process unfolds across India, the answer to that question isn't just an academic one. It could literally determine the fate of millions of voters, and maybe the future of India's democracy itself.